Hi, it's Lori. Welcome to my channel. In this video, I'm going to share my 3 can't live without Photoshop tools. So jump into Photoshop and follow along. So often in working with Lightroom, you can't get an exact, really clean heal or clone when you're trying to correct something in your image. So for this image, I had this little something was on this petal and it's very distracting. And I tried working with it in Lightroom, but it just wasn't going to work. So when that happens, your best bet is to come over to Photoshop. So there you can see where I've used the clone tool to heal over this area. So that's one of my first tips. Let me duplicate this layer and I'll show you how I use it. Now I could use the heal, which I'm going to talk about in a minute, but the clone tool is going to be best in this scenario. This area has dark and then it has light, and so it's a really challenging area to correct. So I'm going to start down here below. I'm going to keep my brush really small, and you want to click the Option key to get your target. This is telling Photoshop where to clone from. Now I'm going to use my brush, and I'm just going to start. Now you can see that target moves, and so you've got to really watch where your target is. So I'm just trying to keep that target moving right along. Then I'm going to come back down again. I'm just going to make sure my target is right, and I'm just going to start moving. Now, your target's going to move with you, so it's really important to come back. You want to watch that X crossbar target as much as you're watching where you're brushing. So again, I'm just going to keep going over it really small until I get the look that I'm wanting. And I think this time it actually did better than the one before. So now you can see it's pretty nice. Even if I zoom in, I'm really happy with that. And so that is my first can't live without, is the clone tool. I use it all the time, and it's one tool that you absolutely want to come into Photoshop to use. Now my second must-have, we'll keep working with this image, is the spot healing. So while there is this option in Lightroom, sometimes Lightroom just cannot do what Photoshop does. So the spot heal brush is just a great tool. You can come over and just click on your spot, and it is going to match the pixels really, really close and just does a really nice job. I find it doesn't leave a circle. Sometimes in Lightroom you get what just happened here. You get this circle, and it's where it's not really matching the area. So this is where I would come in again with the clone tool, and I would just grab my target and I would match that up. Now, these techniques with clone and the spot heal brush here in Photoshop definitely help you when you've got small details like I'm working with. The edge of a flower, lines on a building, someone's face, something where you're needing to be really precise. And so again, this is my second can't live without, and that is the spot healing brush tool. Okay, so you've got spot healing brush tool and we've got clone tool. Next is a whole different direction. I'm going to take you over to this image. And my third can't live without is adding textures. So I find that adding them in Photoshop is the easiest way, easiest program to do it. So I had this image that I edited, and I wanted to just give it a softer, the background, some texture, some softness, and I just was having a hard time, and so I decided to add a texture. So to do that, I keep my texture files on my external drive. And so I've got these textures pulled up, and I already know which one I'm wanting to use. I just like to drag it over, pop it on top of the image. It's as easy as that. Now you can open the file in Photoshop, but I just like to drag it over. And then I just pull it to fit the frame, click enter. And from here you can change your blend mode. So you've got all kinds of options. You could do overlay, that's kind of artistic and interesting. We could do multiply if we want it really dark. We can do soft light, which is what I had selected to do. And then from here you can reduce your opacity. So we can bring that down so that there's just a little hint. So if you do not like fooling with mask and layers, and maybe you're brand new to Photoshop, anyone can come in and add a texture. You can do exactly the steps that I just showed you, change your blend mode and change your opacity. Now, if you are comfortable with layers and mask, you can refine this even further. So I'm going to come down and add a mask. It's white, which is going to reveal the layers underneath. I'm going to use then a black brush to reveal. I'm going to grab my brush tool. I'm going to keep my opacity about 50-60%. And I'm just going to remove some of this texture has some lines, and I'm going to maybe take it up to 80% opacity. I'm just going to remove some of that. And that's it. That's all I had to do to really add this beautiful texture and bring this image to life. I'll show you before and after. So those are my top 3 can't live without Photoshop tools. Again, adding textures using the spot healing brush, which is right here on the left, and using the clone tool. So I hope you'll try those out. Even if you're not a Photoshop user, they're super easy to use, and they're going to make your editing so much easier and more precise than maybe what you can do in Lightroom. Thanks, everybody.